So I'm sitting here today with Kelsey from Emerson. We're at CastExpo, first day, and actually for Kelsey, this is her first CastExpo, so pretty excited to sit down and just get her perspective, not only on the casting industry and her first CastExpo, but also talk a little bit about 3D printing. Kelsey's heading up, one of the team at Emerson that does the 3D printing, so just thought it'd be a good chance to just sit down, have some coffee, and talk a little bit about 3D printing. So, Kelsey, if you just kind of talk about, at Emerson, a little bit about what your role. You don't have to deep dive, but just a little bit about what you're doing and how you're using 3D printing. Would be great to know.
Yeah. So my role is the customer success manager for the 3D stand mold printing side of it. I do a lot of the front end operations is technically where I kind of reside. So working with the buyers, educating them on what the process is, how it works, what kind of capabilities that we have for castings, and then working as well with yourself and the foundries on getting the actual execution of these parts. So that's really the side that I cover from the Emerson side.
Yeah, you're not, you're familiar with castings. You said you used to be on the machine shop end.
Yes.
So you're used to dealing with castings, seeing the defects, and unfortunately, the conventional casting process, there's a lot of room for error. Since now starting to see castings on the front end, are you starting to see now the advantages of 3D, or are you still kind of learning? So what would you say that 3D has to offer to maybe fix some of the problems that you used to see on the back end?
Yeah, so it is definitely a change going from kind of the end of the casting process and the beginning of the machining process to now the beginning of the casting process, and it is very different. When you're at the end, you see all the mistakes or the bad things that happened, but you don't really see how to interact with those in the beginning and kind of be more proactive instead of reactive. So it has been great learning about that side of it and working through some of that and getting to know more and understand where those issues come from later on. And I think that the 3D side obviously has kind of a place for that. I don't know if, at least right now, I don't think it's the standard that we should go to for every casting.
Right.
But yeah, for lead times, we do a lot of very, very low run parts. And it's really great for that, just when you don't have a pattern, or nobody has a pattern, or there's nobody around that even knows where a pattern would be,
right.
Things like that. That kind of get lost over the years. It really helps pull those together so that you can get those castings, and it really opens up that door where you may have been, a year lead time before, and now we can kind of work through it a lot faster. So it has been a great opportunity, and there's definitely a market for it.
Yeah, the high mix, low volume, obviously has been the start. We're starting to see, in our shop, it's starting to go more mainstream, more production, not totally 3D printing, not a mold and a core, but more of a hybrid. So the outside shape, might be, made with a pattern still on a green sand line or a molding line.
Yep.
And then the internal, the highly complex, would be 3D printed even in production. And I was just curious, have you seen any of those applications yet, or have you come across that with any of your buyers? Are they starting to see designs that weren't castable in the past, but now they're able to make castings? I was just curious if you've seen that from the OEM level.
Yeah, so I've kind of seen two parts to that. So one, like you mentioned, we have the pattern, we can't get the cores.
Right.
So kind of working through some of that, what's a good process for that, how to do that, and we're kind of just getting our feet wet on that side of it. But I think there would be, there's obviously capabilities there and opportunities moving forward, especially for higher run parts. So if you just need the core, that's a lot less to print than the entire pattern. So there's, the benefits there. But then on the other hand, there's also discussions, this piece was a forging before. Do we have the capability to, make it into a casting? Well, if you change that, and you can make it from a casting based on, your metrics that you need, the temperature, all those types of things, then yeah, it's a great opportunity to do that as well, to move towards a casting instead of away from a casting. So.
another question, you work with the buyers, different groups of
Yes.
Emerson. And, you know, for me, I've been doing this for about 7-8 years now. And, you know, at the very onset, there was a lot of education that took place. You know, every single foundry that I went into, I basically had to re-educate somebody.
Yes.
You know, every day, you know, they'd never heard of the process. They thought I was talking about, you know, witchcraft or voodoo. You know, I'm going to make a casting out of nothing. You know, but so from your role at Emerson, are you having to educate the buyers, or are they coming to you with some information now? Now that this has been kind of going on in the casting industry, and Emerson's been using 3D printing, you know, for the past 4, 5, 6 years. You know, what are you seeing from the buyer's side on the education?
So from my side, it varies wildly. So it kind of depends, honestly. So the buyers that have been around a little bit longer, that were kind of through, you know, the first iterations of all this, they got in at the beginning, they got kind of some of that initial education, they're definitely more open and willing to at least use it and like see how it keeps changing and growing as a capability. But I mean, we also have a lot of buyers that are new to this or have never heard of it, or, you know that it's there but don't really know how to use it or what it's for. And so yeah, a large part of my role is that like outreach and education to, you know, buyers and planners and even like engineers at some of our other divisions, working with them so that they're aware that this is even an option. So yeah, I definitely do a large amount of outreach to help out with this.
And do you have like any kind of internal, have you developed, or was there anything given to you when you came into this role, any type of like a playbook or like any or are you just kind of taking what you're learning and what you've seen and kind of just doing it, you know, per person, per case by case? Or do you have some type of education book and, you know, internal that you use?
So we definitely have some. So there is some, you know, the history of how the process began at Emerson and everything, and, you know, what it's used for and those type of applications. So we have all that information that we use, and then kind of I guess I've gone through and tweaked some of that and added more information as we update it. So, you know, as the process gets faster and more efficient, and as we add new types of like automation to the process, adding that information for them. So I would say it's kind of a hybrid of both. But yeah, getting them all that education that they need for that. And it has the limited amount of time that I've been in this role, I have seen that the outreach does make a difference. People are more willing to even just send an email and say, hey, I have this. Is this a good application? Is it not? I think it might be, but maybe not. So we're getting a lot more of those requests, which has been really great.
Yeah, I can tell you. I mean, that's still going on. You know, I've been doing this for a long time, and, you know, people still don't have that magic calculator, that magic tool, you know, that you just drop it in and say, use 3D or not. There's a lot of outside, and I think you touched on it with the speed market, you know, I think, or the low volume, the high mix of parts, you know, it's a case by case. Even, I mean, even though we have more and more guidelines of where it fits, I still think it's a case by case. You know, you have to sit down with the engineer or the buyer and really find out what the need is. So,
well, especially when you're working with these parts that may not have been printed or are obsolete. You know, they haven't been printed a long time, or, you know, we print one every 5 years or make one every 5 years or whatever. Yeah, they're just not familiar with the parts, which makes sense. You know, you're not dealing with them on a day-to-day. So yeah, I think some of it is that, but
it's definitely going to be an exciting future. You know, we really appreciate the relationship working with Emerson and now working with you in your new role. You know, we're excited to see where the future goes, because I think even though we've been doing it for a long time, I think it's still evolving, and, you know, we've been seeing more and more production cases. So it'll be interesting to see, as your design teams are coming out with new product, you know, if there are applications for production. So it'll be exciting to work on that with you. But, you know, thank you so much for sitting down with us and taking the time. Now, you know, enjoy the rest of the CastExpo, and we'll be looking forward to talking to you soon.
Awesome, thank you.